Mom, apologize to my mother-in-law or get out of my house. Those words came out of my son Michael's mouth that Thursday night in front of the whole family at the dining table I had helped buy. I stood up slowly. I did not tremble. I did not scream. I looked directly into the eyes of that woman, my son's mother-in-law, who was smiling with that air of someone who believes she has won the war. I said only 3 words, and I left. 2 weeks later, Michael knocked on my door desperate. But that comes later. My name is Emily Patterson. I am 60 years old, and what I am going to tell you changed the relationship with my only son forever. I do not know if I did the right thing. I still ask myself some nights when the house is silent and only the ticking of the wall clock that belonged to my husband can be heard. But I do know one thing. There are moments in a woman's life when she must choose between being loved or being respected, and I chose. It all started 3 years ago when my husband Arthur died. Massive heart attack, 59 years old, no goodbyes. He left his wedding ring on the nightstand like always. I kept it in a little blue velvet box. I still look at it sometimes when I need to remember who I was before becoming the invisible woman of this story. Arthur and I built everything together. The hardware store downtown, the 3-story house in the suburbs, the savings, Michael's future. When he died, Michael was 32 years old. He lived in Austin. He worked at a logistics company. Good boy, responsible, or so I thought. 6 months after the funeral, he called me. Mom, I met someone. Her name was Sarah, 26 years old. Marketing student, perfect smile, impeccable nails, and a mother who seemed to have stepped out of a reality show of the kind I never liked. The first time I saw them together, something in my chest tightened. But a mother does not say those things. A mother smiles, hugs, welcomes, and that is what I did, until that night, until my son asked me to apologize in front of that woman who never respected me. Sometimes we trust too much in those we should not write. Have you also been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read you. Before telling you how I got to that moment that terrible night when my son asked me to get out of his house, I need you to understand who I was. Who was I? Because sometimes to understand a fall, you have to first remember the height from where you fell. Arthur and I met when I was 23. He worked at his father's hardware store in downtown Chicago. I was an elementary school teacher at a public school nearby. My cousin Lucy introduced us at a Christmas party. He was wearing a dark green sweater and smelled of fresh-cut wood and clean cologne. When he asked me to dance, his hands were rough but gentle. You know, I have never been good with words, he told me that night. But I do know how to build things that last, and he delivered. We got married 8 months later in a small church. My dress was simple white lace with long sleeves. Arthur cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. He did not hide it. He took my hands and said, I am going to take care of you all my life, Emily. And he did. For 36 years he did. We lived first in a small apartment in the city. 2 rooms, a kitchen where the 2 of us barely fit, a balcony where Arthur grew tomatoes in pots. In the mornings I made fresh coffee with cinnamon. He drank it while reading the newspaper. Always the economic news first, then sports. I graded my students' homework at the table with a red pencil that he sharpened for me every night before sleeping. Those small gestures, those details that one does not know she is going to miss until they are no longer there. Michael was born when I was 25. Natural birth, 12 hours of labor. Arthur did not move from my side. He held my hands so tight that later he had bruises on his knuckles. When the nurse put our son in my arms, Arthur leaned in and hugged us both. My family, he whispered, my complete family. Michael was a calm baby. He slept well. He ate well. He had his father's eyes and my nose. He grew fast as if he was in a hurry to discover the world. Arthur took him to the hardware store on Saturdays. He sat him on the counter and taught him the names of the tools. This is a wrench, son. This is a Phillips screwdriver. Michael looked at him with those huge eyes, fascinated, as if his father were the wisest man in the universe. And for him, he was. For me, too. On Sundays, we went to the park. Arthur bought cotton candy. Michael ran after the pigeons. I sat on a bench and watched them from afar, thinking, This is happiness. This is all a woman can ask for. How naive I was. How naive we all are when we believe that happiness is a permanent state and not a fleeting moment that must be caught with both hands before it escapes. When Michael turned 10, Arthur's father's hardware store closed. The economic crisis, the debts. The old man died 6 months later. Of pure sadness, I think. Arthur inherited the debts and an empty local. "We are going to start over," he told me one night in our small kitchen. "You and I, Emily, like always." And we started. I stopped working as a teacher. Not because he asked me to, but because it was necessary. Someone had to be at the hardware store while Arthur got clients, negotiated with suppliers, rebuilt what his father had lost. We worked 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Michael ate at my mother's house after school. Many nights we arrived so late that he was already asleep. I went into his room. I tucked him in. I kissed his forehead. "Forgive me, my love," I whispered. "This is for you. Everything is for you." And it was. In 5 years, the hardware store became profitable again. In 10 years, it was one of the most recognized in the area. Arthur opened a second branch, then a third. We bought the house in the suburbs when Michael was 16. 3 floors, backyard, 2-car garage. I chose every piece of furniture, every curtain, every lamp. "This is our house," I told Arthur the day we moved in. "The house where we are going to grow old together." He hugged me from behind. He rested his chin on my shoulder. "Together," he repeated. "Always together." Michael studied business administration at a top university in Texas. He visited us every 2 months. He brought his dirty clothes in a huge suitcase, and I washed them, ironed them, folded them with care. He laughed. "Mom, I know how to wash my clothes." I know I told him, but I like doing it, because that is what a mother does, right? Finds pleasure in small things, in caring and serving and giving herself. And she never thinks that one day that devotion can be used against her. Arthur died on a Tuesday morning. We were having breakfast. He put his hand to his chest, looked at me with those eyes I loved so much, and said, "Emily, I." He did not finish the sentence. He collapsed in the chair. I called the ambulance. I did CPR as best as I could, remembering a course I had taken years ago. But it was too late. At the hospital, a young doctor with round glasses told me, "I am very sorry, ma'am. We did everything possible." Michael arrived that same night from Austin. He hugged me in the hospital hallway, and we both cried like we had never cried before. "I have you," he whispered. "I will always take care of you, Mom, just like Dad took care of you." I believed him. How could I not believe him? He was my son, my only son. The funeral was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The church was full. Clients, friends, relatives, neighbors. Everyone loved Arthur. I sat in the front pew with Arthur's ring clenched in my right hand. I did not cry during the service. I could not. It was as if all my tears had run out at the hospital, and now only a huge hole remained in my chest. That night at home alone, for the first time in 36 years, I opened Arthur's closet. His shirts still smelled like him. I sat on the floor and hugged them all one by one. And there alone in that closet that smelled of wood and fresh cologne, I finally could cry. While I tell all this, I think about where you might be listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. I would like to know from where you accompany me in this story. The first 6 months after Arthur's death were like walking underwater. Everything moved slow. Sounds came muffled. I existed, but I did not live. I got up at 6 in the morning out of habit, although there was no one left to make coffee for. I showered. I got dressed. I sat in the empty kitchen and watched through the window how the sun illuminated the garden Arthur had planted. His rose bushes kept blooming. How cruel right, that things keep growing when the person who planted them is no longer there. Michael called me every day from Austin. "How are you? Mom, did you eat well? Do you need anything?" I told him I was fine, that I ate well, that I did not need anything. White lies, we say, so as not to worry those we love. The truth was that I barely tasted a bite, that the house was too big for me, that every corner reminded me of Arthur, and that sometimes in the early morning I reached out my hand to his side of the bed, hoping to find him there. but it was always empty cold. Arthur's lawyer, Mr. Harrison, an older man with a gray mustache and formal manners, summoned me to his office 3 months after the funeral. "Mrs. Patterson, we need to review your husband's will." I sat in front of his mahogany desk with my hands on my brown leather purse, the same one Arthur had given me on our last anniversary. Mr. Harrison opened a thick folder and took out several documents. Mr. Patterson was very careful with his affairs. He began. He left everything in order: the hardware store, the properties, the bank accounts. I nodded without fully understanding where all that was going. "You are the sole heir, Mrs. Patterson. Everything passes to your name. The 3 hardware stores, the house in the suburbs, the lake house you bought 2 years ago, the investments, the savings." He paused. "It is a considerable estate. We are talking about approximately $2 million in assets." The number hit me like a cold wave. I knew Arthur had worked hard, that the stores were doing well, but I had never stopped to do the math. I had never thought in terms of estate. Mr. Patterson left very specific instructions. The lawyer continued, "You have total control of everything. You can manage it as you see fit, and when you decide, you can inherit it to your son, Michael. When I decide, I repeated." "Exactly. The will stipulates that you are the only owner while you live. Michael will inherit only after your death, or if you decide to make changes before." The lawyer handed me a card with the name of an accountant. "I recommend you meet with him. Review everything calmly, understand what you have in your hands." I left that office dizzy. $2 million. Arthur had left me protected. More than protected, he had left me safe, independent owner of my own destiny. For the first time in months, something resembling peace settled in my chest. I told Michael that same afternoon on the phone. "Mom, I am glad Dad left you everything well organized," he said. His voice sounded warm, genuine. "Now you do not have to worry about anything. You have your house, your income. You can live peacefully." "Yes," I replied. "Your father was always forward-thinking. And when the time comes, Michael continued, all that is going to be mine right eventually." Something in the way he said it made me pause. It was not the question. It was the tone, as if he were already counting the money, as if my death were just a pending procedure. "Eventually," I repeated. "When I am no longer here." Of course, he rushed to say. "I did not mean—" "You know what I meant, Mom." We hung up shortly after. I stayed sitting in the living room with the phone still in my hand, looking at Arthur's ring resting in its blue velvet box on the coffee table. It was the first time I felt a small chill, a discomfort, a tiny crack in the image I had of my son. But I ignored it, because that is what mothers do, right? Ignore the signs. Justify, forgive before there is something to forgive. 6 months after that conversation, Michael called me excited. "Mom, I have news. Tell me, my love. I met someone." My heart skipped a beat. Michael had been single for years, focused on his work, on his career. The idea that he had finally found someone filled me with joy. "Tell me, what is her name?" "Sarah. Sarah Miller. She is 26. She studies marketing. I met her at a work conference 3 months ago." 3 months, and you had not told me anything." I scolded him gently. I wanted to be sure, he replied. "But Mom, she is the one." "I know it. I am very happy, Michael. When am I going to meet her?" "Soon, very soon. You are going to love her." 2 weeks later, Michael came to Chicago and brought Sarah. I prepared a pot roast all day before, Michael's favorite. I set the table with the lace tablecloth that had belonged to my grandmother. I arranged fresh flowers in the center. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted that girl to feel welcome in our family. They arrived at 2 in the afternoon. Michael entered first, smiling from ear to ear, holding the hand of a thin girl with long, straight hair, sharp face, flawless makeup. "Mom, this is Sarah." Sarah extended her hand. She did not hug me, only the hand, polite but distant. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Patterson." Her voice was soft, almost childish, but her eyes scanned me up and down in 2 seconds, evaluating me, classifying me, filing me away. "The pleasure is mine, Sarah. Welcome." We sat in the living room. I served coffee. Sarah rejected it. "I do not drink coffee, thanks. Do you have sparkling water?" Of course I will get it now. While I went to the kitchen, I heard them speaking in low voices. I could not distinguish the words, but Sarah's tone was critical, as if she were making comments about something. I returned with the water. "What a big house," Sarah said, looking around. "It must be difficult to keep clean." "I manage," I replied. "Do you live alone here in this house so big?" "Yes." "How lonely, right?" The way she said it, it was not compassion, it was pity, or something worse. Michael changed the subject quickly. "Mom made pot roast. It is the best in the state, Sarah." We went to the dining room. I served the plates. Michael ate with appetite as always. Sarah moved the food from one side to the other with her fork. "Don't you like it?" I asked. "It is too seasoned for me," she replied. "My stomach is delicate. I can make you something else." "No, do not worry. I am on a diet anyway." The lunch felt eternal. Sarah talked about her studies, her plans, her family. My mom is an interior decorator. She has exquisite taste. She always tells me that a woman's home reflects who she is. And while she said it, her eyes scanned my dining room again, my curtains, my paintings, finding them insufficient. When they finished eating, Michael and I stayed alone for a moment while Sarah went to the bathroom. "What do you think?" my son asked, excited. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to tell him that girl had made me feel small in my own house, that she had criticized my food without tasting it, that her cold eyes did not match her polite smile. But I did not do it. "She is very pretty," I said. "Right, I am very in love, Mom." And there it was, that shine in his eyes, that shine that made me silence everything else, because a mother does not destroy her son's illusion. A mother smiles, blesses, steps aside, even if all her instinct screams that something is not right. Sarah returned from the bathroom. "Mrs. Patterson, thanks for lunch. It was very traditional." Before leaving, she hugged me, a mechanical hug without warmth, and she whispered in my ear, "Michael talks a lot about you, about how close you are to him." She said it as if it were a problem, as if I were an obstacle. I watched them leave from the door. Michael said goodbye with a kiss on my cheek. "I will call you tomorrow, Mom. Thanks for having us." I closed the door. I stayed alone in the hallway, and I knew, although I did not want to know it, that that girl was going to change everything. I went to the living room. I took the blue velvet box. I opened the lid. Arthur's ring shone under the afternoon light. "I do not like her." I whispered to the ring as if he could hear me. "I do not like her for our son." But the ring did not answer, and I kept my doubts in the same place where I kept that ring, in the silence, in the solitude, in a mother's fear of losing her only son's love. There are things one learns when getting old. One of them is that motherly love has a terrible defect. It makes us blind. We see what we want to see. We believe what we need to believe. We forgive the unforgivable just to keep the peace. And that is how I was for the next 2 years. Blind. Voluntarily blind. Michael and Sarah got engaged 6 months after that first lunch at my house. He called me excited. "Mom, I proposed." She said, "Yes, we are getting married." "Congratulations, my love," I replied. And I was sincere. Despite my reservations, I wanted my son to be happy. "When is the wedding?" "In a year. Sarah wants a big wedding, something elegant." "Of course. Whatever you need, count on me. Thanks, Mom." I knew I could count on you. What I did not know then was that counting on me meant much more than I imagined. A week later, Sarah called me. It was the first time we spoke directly without Michael as an intermediary. "Mrs. Patterson, I need your help. Tell me, Sarah, how can I help you? It is just that my mom and I are planning the wedding, but the budget we have is not enough for everything we want. The Botanical Gardens is available. It is beautiful, but it costs $70,000 just for the venue." My breath caught. $70,000. That is a lot of money, Sarah. I know, but it is just that my mom says a wedding is the only opportunity a woman has to feel like a princess. And Michael agrees. It is just that, well, you know, Michael earns well, but not enough for this. There was a silence. I knew what was coming. I could feel it in the air, like when the sky darkens before a storm. "Could you help us, Mrs. Patterson?" "I know Arthur left. Resources." And this is for your son, so Michael has the wedding he deserves. Let me think about it, I replied. Of course. But they only hold the place with a deposit. If we do not pay in 2 weeks, we lose it. We hung up. I stayed sitting in the living room with the phone in my hand. $70,000. It was a huge amount. But it was also true that I had the resources that Arthur had left me well off, that everything we had would eventually be for Michael anyway. What difference did it make giving it to him now or later? That night, I took Arthur's ring out of its box, put it in my palm, and looked at it under the lamplight. What would you do? I asked the ring as if he could answer me. Would you give him the money? But Arthur was not there to advise me, and I had to decide alone. I transferred the $70,000 to Michael the next day. Mom, you do not know what this means for us, he told me on the phone. You are the best. Sarah is happy. I am happy. I am glad, my love. I just want you to be happy. We are Mom. Thanks to you. I thought that would be enough. I thought I had bought my place in my son's life, in his marriage, in his future. How naive the wedding was in June, a year after the engagement. Sarah looked beautiful, that I cannot deny. White dress with crystals, 10-foot veil magazine hairstyle. The botanical gardens was decorated with thousands of white roses and gold ribbons. I arrived early in my navy blue dress, the same one I had used at my cousin's wedding 2 years ago. I did not buy a new one. It seemed unnecessary to me. Sarah saw me and frowned. Mrs. Patterson, is that the dress you are going to wear? Yes. Why, it is just that the mothers of the bride and groom usually wear something more special, more elegant. This dress is elegant, I replied, feeling myself blush. Oh, never mind, she said, turning to look at her mother. What can be done now? Her mother, Linda Miller, was a 50-year-old woman, platinum blonde hair, filled lips, thin body, molded by surgeries. She extended her hand without smiling. You must be Michael's mom. Emily Patterson. Nice to meet you. Linda Miller. She looked me up and down exactly as her daughter had done in our first meeting. Sarah told me you helped with the wedding expenses. Very generous of you. She said it as if it were the least I could do, as if it were my obligation. The ceremony was beautiful. Michael cried when Sarah walked down the aisle. I cried too, although I am not sure they were completely happy tears. There was something about all that which made me feel out of place. During the reception, they sat me at a table in the back next to Sarah's distant uncles, who did not speak a word to me all night. The main table was only for the bride and groom, Sarah's parents, and the wedding party. And the groom's mom, I heard someone ask. Oh, that is the lady in blue back there, Linda replied. Poor thing. She came alone. She was widowed recently. Poor thing, as if I were a figure of pity. Michael came to greet me between dances. Are you okay, Mom? Do you like the party? It is lovely, my love. Everything turned out perfect. Thanks to you, he said, kissing my forehead. None of this would have been possible without you. And he left back to the dance floor, back to his new wife, back to his new life, where I was smaller and smaller, more and more invisible. I left before they cut the cake. No one noticed my absence. Michael and Sarah moved to the city a month after the wedding. I got a better job here, Michael explained to me. And Sarah wants to be closer to her mom. That is great, I said. That way we see each other more often. Exactly. But Mom, we need to talk about something. Tell me. We are looking for a house. We saw one in the Highlands, 3 bedrooms, terrace, 2-car garage. It is perfect, only that the down payment is $100,000. There it was, again the request disguised as conversation. Michael, I already gave you $70,000 for the wedding. I know, Mom, and I appreciate it. But this is an investment. It is our house, where we are going to form our family, where your grandchildren are going to grow up. Grandchildren. That word hit me straight in the heart. I thought you guys could save for the down payment. I tried. We could. But that would take us 2 or 3 years, and the house is going to be sold before. Mom, you have the resources. Dad left everything for you to live well. Yes, but also for me, for my future. Isn't it? He was right in a way. Everything Arthur and I built was eventually for Michael. Why wait? I transferred the $100,000. They bought the house in the Highlands. I helped them move. I carried boxes, I cleaned floors, I hung curtains. Linda was also there directing everything as if it were her house. Sarah, darling, that painting goes in the living room, not in the dining room. Michael, honey, did you hire the gardener? I recommended I was in the kitchen arranging plates in the cabinets when I heard Linda's voice. Is Mrs. Patterson going to come around here a lot? She is my mom, Michael replied. I guess so from time to time. Oh, son, just be careful. Mothers-in-law can be complicated, invasive. My Sarah needs her space to make her nest. Do you understand me? Michael did not answer. I stopped breathing, hidden in that kitchen with a porcelain plate trembling in my hands. Invasive. That was the word Linda used to describe me. I came out of the kitchen as if I had heard nothing. I smiled. I helped. I left early. And in my car alone, I finally cried. The following months were an exercise in disappearance. I tried to be the perfect mother-in-law, the one who does not invade, who does not bother, who waits to be called instead of calling. Michael invited me to eat once a month, always with Sarah, always with Linda. I arrived with some homemade dessert. Sarah left it in the kitchen without tasting it. I am watching my figure mother-in-law, but thanks. Linda filled the conversations with anecdotes of her family, her travels, her successes as a decorator. Last month, I decorated a house in Oak Brook. The owners were fascinated with my work. They paid me $50,000 just for the consulting. I listened in silence. Sometimes Michael asked me how I was. Fine, my love. Everything good. Small lies, so as not to be a burden. One day, Sarah announced she was pregnant. Michael called me crying with happiness. Mom, I am going to be a dad. You are going to be a grandma. That news filled me with hope. A baby, a grandson, a new opportunity to be necessary, to be loved, to be important in my son's life. But Linda had other plans. I am going to help Sarah with the baby, she announced at the Sunday family dinner. I am going to move in with them for the first 3 months. A new mother needs her mother. I could also help, I offered timidly. Linda looked at me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Oh, Emily, of course. When we have everything organized, we will let you know. They never let me know. My grandson was born in March. Michael sent me a photo by WhatsApp. His name is Matthew. He weighs 7 pounds, 8 ounces. He is perfect. Son, can I go meet him? Sure, Mom, but wait a few days. Sarah is very tired. Linda is here helping. As soon as we are more organized, I will tell you. I waited a week, 2 weeks, 3. Finally, a month later, they let me visit him. Linda opened the door. Oh, Emily, good thing you came. Come in, but do not make noise. The baby is asleep. Matthew was in his crib, tiny, perfect, with his eyes closed and his fists clenched. I leaned in to touch him, to caress his soft cheek. Don't wake him up, Linda warned me. We just got him to sleep, and it was hours of work. I stood there looking at my grandson without being able to hold him, without being able to kiss him, without being able to tell him how much I loved him. 20 minutes later, Linda suggested it was time for me to go. Sarah needs to rest. I drove back to my house with a lump in my throat. I arrived, closed the door, went straight to the living room, took out Arthur's ring. And this time I did not just cry, I spoke to him. I am disappearing, Arthur. I told the ring. I am becoming invisible, and the worst thing is that I am erasing myself out of fear, out of love, not to lose our son. The ring shone in my hand, and I, in that huge and empty house, understood something terrible. I had become the mother-in-law who waits for permission to love, who apologizes for existing, who pays for every crumb of attention. And yet I remained silent, because that is what mothers who are afraid do. They swallow the pain smile and hope that someday someone notices they are bleeding inside. While I tell you this, I wonder if you have lived something similar. Have you ever felt that you erase yourself to keep the peace? Write it in the comments. Sometimes just knowing that we are not alone gives us strength to continue. There is a difference between suspecting and knowing, between sensing and confirming, between feeling that something is wrong and seeing the truth with your own eyes. I had been suspecting for 2 years, but what I discovered that afternoon changed everything. Matthew was 6 months old when Sarah called me. It was strange. She never called me. It was always Michael who acted as a bridge between us. Mother-in-law, I need a favor. Tell me, Sarah. It is just that I have an emergency. My mom had to go to Texas for an urgent project, and I have an appointment with the gynecologist. There is no one who can watch Matthew. Could you? My heart skipped a beat. Of course. At what time can you come in an hour? The appointment is at 3. I will be there. I drove to the Highlands with an excitement I had not felt for months. Finally, I was going to be alone with my grandson. Finally, I was going to be able to hold him, kiss him, rock him without anyone watching me. Sarah opened the door. She was wearing sweatpants and her hair tied back. Without makeup, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Thanks for coming. Matthew just ate. He should sleep in an hour. The diapers are in his room, the wipes too. Do not give him anything other than water, please. Do not worry, I will be fine. I will be back in 2 hours maximum. She took her bag and left in a hurry. I stayed alone in that house that I had helped pay for, but where I always felt like an uncomfortable guest. Matthew was in his rocker awake, looking at a colorful mobile hanging above him. When he saw me, he smiled. That smile. My God, that smile that reminded me of Michael when he was a baby. I held him carefully, cradled him against my chest. He smelled of powder and warm milk. I hummed a lullaby I sang to Michael 35 years ago. Sleep, my child. Sleep, my love. Sleep, peace of my heart. Matthew closed his eyes. His breathing became slow deep. I took him to his crib and laid him down gently. I stood watching him for long minutes. My grandson, the extension of my son, the continuation of Arthur and me, and I felt for the first time in years that my life made sense again. I left the room carefully, not to make noise. I went to the kitchen. I thought about preparing something for when Sarah returned, some tea, a sandwich. Something that showed that I was not only useful for watching the baby, but that I could be part of that family. The kitchen was impeccable, everything in its place. The glass table shone under the afternoon light, and there on the table was Sarah's cell phone. She had forgotten it. I did not touch it. It was not my intention. But the screen lit up by itself with a notification. A message from Linda. Did you talk to Michael about the trust? You have to pressure more? If the old lady does not put the house in his name, everything gets complicated. I froze. The screen turned off. My hands were trembling. Did I read right? The old lady. The trust. Put the house in his name. The screen lit up again with another message. Remember what we talked about. While everything is in her name, you guys have no control. You need Michael to be firmer. The phone vibrated again. And do not tell him anything about Austin yet. First, secure the house in the suburbs. Austin. What about Austin? I moved away from the phone as if it burned. I went to the living room. I sat on the sofa. I tried to breathe, but my mind would not stop. The trust, the house, the old lady. I was the old lady. My house. The house Arthur and I bought. The house where we raised Michael. They wanted me to put it in my son's name. Why? For what? The baby cried. I went to his room. I held him. I rocked him until he calmed down. But while I did it, my mind kept spinning. All the requests for money, the $70,000 for the wedding, the $100,000 for the down payment. Had it been filial love or strategy? All the spaced visits, the scarce invitations. Had it been respect for my space or calculated distancing? Sarah returned 2 hours later. Everything okay? Perfect. Matthew slept almost the whole hour. Great, thanks for coming, mother-in-law. I left quickly. I could not be there any longer. I could not look her in the eyes without her seeing my discovery. In my car before starting the engine, I took out my cell phone. I looked in my bank transfer history. $70,000, June of last year. $100,000, August of last year. $15,000, October. For the baby furniture mom, $20,000. December, for the kitchen remodel, $30,000. February, for Sarah's car. Hers broke down, $235,000 in less than 2 years. How had I not seen it before? How had I been so blind? I arrived home. I went straight to my study. I took out all the documents Mr. Harrison had given me. Arthur's will, the deeds to the house, the property titles of the hardware stores, the bank statements, everything was in my name, as Arthur had wanted. Because Arthur knew me, he knew our son. He knew Michael was good but impressionable. He knew he needed to protect me even after death. I took Arthur's ring. I held it against my chest. You knew I told him. That is why you did it like this. That is why you left everything to me. That night I could not sleep. I replayed every conversation, every visit, every request, and they all fit into a pattern I had not wanted to see. The next morning Michael called me. "Mom, how are you?" "Fine, my love. Sarah told me you watched Matthew yesterday." "Thanks, it was a pleasure." There was a pause. "Mom, I need to speak with you about something important." There it was. I knew it. I could feel it. "Tell me." I was thinking. "Now that Matthew is here, that we are a family, that things are growing, don't you think it would be a good idea if we started organizing the estate better?" "What do you mean?" "That everything is in your name still. The house, the hardware stores, everything. And I understand Dad did it like that to protect you. But Mom, you are alone. If something happened to you, everything would remain in a complicated legal process. Wouldn't it be easier if I already had some things in my name? Like the house, for example." There it was. The house. Exactly as Linda's message had said. "Michael, your father left things like this for a reason. I know, Mom, but 3 years have passed. You are no longer so vulnerable. You are no longer grieving. It is time to be practical." "Be practical," I repeated. "Yes. Besides, think about Matthew, about his future. If the house were in my name, I could use it as collateral for investments to grow the estate to secure your grandson's future." Every word was calculated. Every argument designed to touch my weak points, my son, my grandson, my need to be useful. "I am going to think about it," I said. "You are going to think about it." His tone changed. It became colder. "Mom, it is not something that should be thought about so much. It is logical. It is the right thing. Michael, it is my house, the house where you grew up. I cannot take that decision lightly. But eventually it is going to be mine anyway. What is the difference? The difference is that your father wanted things to be this way, and I am going to respect his will." Silence on the other end of the line. When Michael spoke again, his voice sounded distant. "Fine, Mom. I understand. But think about it, okay? Talk to Mr. Harrison. Ask him what is most convenient. I will do it." We hung up. I stayed sitting with the phone in my hand, feeling that something had broken between us. Something small, but important. A trust. An innocence. That afternoon, I went to see Mr. Harrison without telling Michael. "Mrs. Patterson, what a pleasure to see you. How can I help you?" "Mr. Harrison, my son is asking me to put the house in the suburbs in his name. He says it is the most practical thing." The lawyer took off his glasses and looked at me seriously. "Ma'am, Mr. Patterson was very clear in his will. Everything remained in your name for a reason. He wanted you to have absolute control while you lived, but eventually everything will be Michael's. Yes, after your death, or if you decide to make changes. But Mrs. Patterson, allow me to be frank. If you put properties in your son's name now, you lose all control. If he decided to sell them, mortgage them, or if he had financial or legal problems, you could do nothing. They would no longer be yours. But Michael would not do that. Maybe not. But Mr. Patterson structured it like this to protect you, not only from external circumstances, but also from impulsive decisions, yours or your son's." His words fell on me like cold water. "What do you recommend, that you do nothing, that you keep everything as it is? If Michael needs something, you can help him in other ways. But do not give up your estate, ma'am. Once you do it, there is no turning back." I left that office with more clarity than ever. Arthur had protected me, and I was about to undo that protection because of my need to be loved. That night, alone in my house, I made brewed coffee with cinnamon like I had not done in years. The smell filled the kitchen. I sat at the table where Arthur and I had drunk thousands of cups together, and for the first time in 3 years, I did not feel alone. I felt accompanied by his decision, by his love, by his foresight. I took the ring out of the blue velvet box, put it on my ring finger. It was too big for me, but I held it there anyway. "Thank you," I whispered to him. "Thank you for taking care of me, even after leaving." 2 days later, Michael came to visit me without warning. He brought Sarah and Matthew. "Mom, we came to eat with you. It has been a long time since we shared. I made pancakes, eggs, bacon." I set the table carefully. During the meal, the conversation was light. Matthew babbled in his high chair. I gave him little spoonfuls of applesauce. But after coffee, Michael took out an envelope. "Mom, we brought something for you to review." "What is it?" "It is some documents." "For the transfer of the house. I already spoke with a notary. We just need you to sign them." Sarah looked at me with that polite smile I hated so much. I opened the envelope. I read the documents. Deed of property transfer, from Emily Patterson to Michael Patterson Miller. I felt the floor move under my feet. "Michael, I told you I was going to think about it. You already thought about it, right? Several days have passed, and I decided no, that I am going to keep things as your father left them." Michael's face hardened. "Mom, do not be ridiculous. It is just a formality. It is not just a formality. It is my house. It is the family house, and I am your family." "I know, but while I live, things stay as they are." Sarah shifted in her chair. Her eyes shone with something that was not sadness. It was fury. "Mother-in-law, do you not trust your own son? This is not about trust." "Then what is it about?" Michael asked, raising his voice. "About control. About power. It is about respecting your father's will. My father is dead, Mom, and you are using his will to cling to things that eventually will be mine anyway." "Exactly. Eventually. Not now." Michael got up from the table. Sarah followed him carrying Matthew. "This is not going to stay like this," my son said from the door. "We are going to have to speak with the lawyer. We are going to have to see legal options." "Legal options," I repeated, incredulous. "Are you threatening me?" "It is not a threat. It is a reality. You cannot stay sitting on an estate you do not use just because you are afraid to let go." They left. The door closed, and I stayed alone in that huge house looking at the envelope with the documents I did not sign. I went to my room. I took out Arthur's ring, and this time I did not cry. This time, something inside me hardened, something that had been asleep for years. A strength, a determination, a refusal to continue being the mother who lets herself be stepped on. "I am not going to sign 'I told the ring.' I am not going to give away what you built, what we built." And in that moment, I knew the battle was just beginning. But I also knew something else. This time, I was not going to disappear. This time, I was going to fight. There are moments in life that divide time in two, the before and the after. Moments where everything you believed crumbles. And what remains is not the person you were, but someone completely new. For me, that moment arrived 3 weeks after Michael left my house furious with those unsigned documents. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks without calls, without visits, without photos of Matthew by WhatsApp. It was a silent punishment, and it worked. Every day that passed without hearing from my son, without seeing my grandson, was a day that ate me up inside. I woke up at 3 a.m. thinking, what if I am wrong? What if I am the selfish one? What if I lose my son for clinging to a house? But every time I picked up the phone to call him to apologize, to yield, I looked at Arthur's ring on my nightstand, and something inside me said, no, resist. It was in the 4th week when I received an unexpected call. Mrs. Patterson. Yes, who is speaking? I am Veronica Simmons. I work with your son Michael at the logistics company. My heart accelerated. Did something happen to Michael? Is he okay? No, sorry to scare you. Michael is fine. It is just that, well, I need to speak with you. It is important. Could we meet? What is it about? I would prefer to tell you in person. Tomorrow at 11 at the cafe on Main Street across from the theater. There was something in her voice. Urgency. Fear, perhaps. I will be there. That night, I did not sleep. What could that woman want? Why didn't she tell me over the phone? Did it have to do with Michael? I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. I ordered a black coffee that I did not taste. My hands were trembling. Veronica arrived exactly at 11. She was a woman of about 40. Short hair, gray business suit, serious face. She sat in front of me without smiling. "Thanks for coming, Mrs. Patterson. What is happening? What does it have to do with my son?" Veronica took out her cell phone. She looked for something and showed it to me. It was a photo of Michael in a restaurant with a woman. It was not Sarah. It was a young woman with brown hair, open laugh. Michael had his arm around her. He looked at her like he had not looked at anyone in a long time. "Who is she?" I asked, although my voice barely came out. "Her name is Ashley. She works at the branch in Austin. Michael travels there twice a month, supposedly for work." Austin. The Austin thing Linda had mentioned in that message. How long have they been together? Almost a year. Maybe more. I knew because my cousin works in the same building. She has seen them together several times. Eating, leaving hotels. The coffee churned in my stomach. "Why are you telling me this?" Veronica looked at me with something that looked like compassion. Because I was also the cheated wife once, and someone told me, and although it hurt, I was grateful to know. "I thought you should know what kind of man your son is well before you make important decisions for him." Important decisions. Michael talks a lot in the office. He says he is about to inherit a considerable estate, that his mom is old, and that soon everything will be his, that he has big plans. Every word was a stab. "My son says I am old?" Veronica lowered her gaze. "I am sorry." I thanked her. I do not know how I managed to get up from that chair. I do not know how I reached my car. But when I closed the door, when I was alone finally, I allowed myself to feel it all. The betrayal. Not only to Sarah, not only to Matthew, but to me. To everything Arthur and I taught him about family, about honor, about commitment. I drove aimlessly for an hour. I ended up at the park, at the same park where we took Michael on Sundays when he was a boy. I sat on a bench. I saw families passing by, parents pushing strollers, kids running after balls. And I thought, at what moment did I lose my son? At what moment did the boy I loved so much become this man I do not recognize? I took out my cell phone. I searched on Google Ashley Peace Logistics, Peace Austin, and I found her. Her LinkedIn profile, Ashley Peace, 26 years old, operations manager. Her profile photo was exactly the woman in the photograph. I checked her Instagram. It was public. There they were, photos of trips, restaurants, sunsets. And in several, although not tagged, Michael could be seen in the background, or his hand, or his watch. Small signs for whoever knew how to look. The most recent one was from 2 weeks ago, a toast in a bar. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings with someone special." 2 weeks ago, just when Michael had stopped talking to me because I did not sign the papers. New beginnings. Was he planning to leave Sarah? Was he planning to start a new life with this woman? And if he did, what would happen to Matthew? I returned home with my head spinning. I told no one. I did not know what to say. I did not know what to do with that information. That night, sitting in my living room with Arthur's ring in my hand, I did something I had not done since his death. I spoke with him in anger. "Arthur, our son is cheating on his wife. He is using his son. He is lying. And he is pressuring me to give him everything you and I built to be able to..." What? Finance his new life, impress his mistress, buy his freedom. Tears fell down my cheeks. What do I do? Do I tell Sarah? Do I confront him? Do I stay quiet? And then, as if Arthur answered me from somewhere, I remembered something he told me once. It was when Michael was 15 and had lied about his grades. Arthur discovered it and punished him. Michael cried, apologized, promised to change. That night in our bed, I told Arthur, "Maybe you were too hard on him," and Arthur answered me, "Emily, love without consequences is not love. It is complicity. If we let him lie now, what is he going to lie about later? Our job as parents is not to make him happy, it is to make him good, make him good." Had we achieved it? Or at some point in my need to be the perfect mother, the one who forgives everything? the one who gives everything, had I raised a man who believed he could take without giving, that he could lie without consequences, that he could manipulate whoever loved him most. 2 days passed, and then I received a call from Sarah. She was crying. "Mother-in-law, I need to speak with you. What happened, Sarah? Can we meet? I do not want to talk over the phone." We went to a cafe near her house. When she arrived, she had swollen eyes, runny makeup, trembling hands. She sat in front of me, and before she could say anything, she burst into tears. "Michael is cheating on me." There it was, the truth I already knew, but that she had just discovered. "How did you know?" I asked. I checked his phone. I know it is wrong, but something told me something was wrong. I found messages, photos, hotel reservations in Austin, love messages with a certain Ashley. She cried harder. And the worst is not that. The worst is that I found another chat with my mom. My stomach tightened. What did it say they had been planning for months? My mom and Michael, planning how to get you to sign the house. My mom told him what to say, how to pressure you. They used me. They used Matthew. Everything was a strategy. She took out her phone. She showed me the screenshots. Messages from Linda to Michael. "You have to be firmer with your mom. Tell her it is for Matthew's future. If she does not sign now, later it will be more difficult. Take advantage that she is vulnerable. Sarah has to cry more in front of her. Make her feel she is being selfish with her own granddaughter." And Michael's answers, "I know, Linda, but she is stubborn. I'm going to bring her the documents already signed. Only her signature is missing. When we have the house, I can use it as collateral for the business I want to open with Ashley in Austin." There it was. Everything. The house was not for Matthew. It was to finance his new life with his mistress. "I am sorry," Sarah said between sobs. "I did not know. I swear to you I did not know my mom was doing that. Did I believe her? I do not know. Maybe it was true, maybe not. But in that moment it did not matter. What are you going to do?" I asked her. "I do not know. I have Matthew. I do not work. I depend completely on Michael. My mom tells me to forgive him, that all men fail, that the important thing is to keep the family united. But mother-in-law, I cannot. I cannot live like this." I looked at her. This woman who had made me feel small, who had kept me away from my grandson, who had allied with her mother to manipulate my son, and now was broken in front of me, victim of the same man I had raised. "Sarah," I told her, taking her hand on the table, "you have to decide what kind of life you want for you and for Matthew. But I am going to tell you something. Do not let anyone, not even your mother, tell you that you deserve less than what you really deserve." She nodded, wiping her tears. We said goodbye at the cafe door. I drove back home in silence, and when I arrived, I went straight to my study. I took out all the documents, the will, the deeds, the bank statements, and called Mr. Harrison. "Mr. Harrison, I need to see you tomorrow. It is urgent." "Did something happen?" "Mrs. Patterson?" Yes, it happened that I finally opened my eyes. That night alone in my house, I prepared the dinner Arthur loved most. Pot roast, white rice, warm rolls. I put 2 plates on the table, one for me, one in front of me empty. On the empty plate I put Arthur's ring, and while I ate, I spoke to him. "Forgive me, love. Forgive me for almost betraying your trust, for almost giving away what you built with so much effort to protect me. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was being a foolish mother." I took the ring. I put it on my finger. This time it did not fit so big. This time it felt correct. "I am not going to give him anything," I whispered. "Not the house, not the hardware stores, not $1 more. It is over. If he wants his inheritance, let him wait until I die, just like he planned." And for the first time in 4 years since Arthur's death, I felt something that was not sadness. I felt fury, clean fury, just fury, fury, that does not destroy, but builds fury that says no more. The next day I went to see Mr. Harrison. "Mrs. Patterson, how can I help you? I want to activate a clause in my husband's will. I want to ensure that nothing he left can be touched by my son until after my death, and I want to do it in a way that is irreversible." The lawyer looked at me surprised. "Are you sure?" "Completely." "Can I ask what led you to this decision?" "The truth, Mr. Harrison." Finally, I saw the truth. During the next 2 hours, we reviewed every document. I signed every paper. I activated every protection Arthur had left in his will. When I left that office, the afternoon sun hit me in the face, and I smiled. It was not a smile of revenge. It was a smile of liberation of a woman who finally stops betraying herself for love. That night, Michael called me. "Mom, we need to talk." "I know," I replied. "Me too. Come to dinner tomorrow at 8. Sarah is going to cook. We have to fix this." Something in his tone told me it was not an invitation. It was a trap, but I was no longer afraid. "I will be there," I said, because I knew the moment had arrived, the moment of confrontation, the moment to tell the truth, the moment to choose myself, even if that meant losing my son. Thursday arrived too fast. I woke up at 6 in the morning, although I did not have to be at Michael's house until 8 at night. The day stretched out before me like a desert I had to cross. I took a shower calmly. I chose my clothes with care, a pearl gray dress that Arthur had given me on our 30th anniversary. Simple but elegant. I put Arthur's ring on the ring finger of my right hand. I looked at it under the morning light. "You are going with me," I told the ring. "Today more than ever, you are going with me." I spent the day organizing papers, putting away documents as if I were preparing for something definitive, because I knew it. I knew that after that night, nothing would be the same. At 7:30, I drove toward the Highlands. The traffic was heavy, the streets illuminated. The city lived its Thursday night routine without knowing that for me, that Thursday would change everything. I arrived exactly at 8. I rang the doorbell. Michael opened the door. He had dark circles under his eyes. He was wearing a wrinkled white shirt. He looked at me with an expression I could not decipher. "Come in, Mom." I entered. The house smelled of reheated food and tension. And there in the living room was Linda sitting in the main armchair, as if it were her house, dressed in white hair, perfectly styled red lips. She smiled at me. But it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who knows she has her prey cornered. "Emily, good thing you came." I did not answer. I looked at Michael. "What is she doing here?" "Mom, Linda is part of this family. She is Matthew's grandmother. She has a right to be in this conversation." "What conversation?" "Sit down, please." I sat in the single armchair far from Linda. Michael remained standing like a referee in a trial. Sarah came out of the kitchen. She was carrying Matthew in her arms. The baby was asleep. She looked at me and her eyes were empty, as if something inside her had turned off. "Well," Michael said, clasping his hands. "Mom, we called you because we need to resolve this situation once and for all." "What situation?" Linda leaned forward. "Emily, let's be honest. You have been behaving in a very selfish way." I felt the air thicken. "Excuse me." "You heard me." "Selfish. Your son is asking you for something completely reasonable, that you put the house in his name. He is your only son, your only heir. Why do you cling so much?" "Because it is my house. It is an empty house where you live alone," Linda continued. "Meanwhile, your son, your daughter-in-law, and your grandson live in a house they can barely pay for. Does that seem fair to you?" "They chose that house. I gave them $100,000 for the down payment, $100,000 that you are never going to let them forget." Linda spat, always reminding them that you helped them as if it were a favor and not your obligation. "My obligation." "Of course you are his mother. It is your duty to help him. But no, you prefer to stay sitting on an estate you do not use, that you do not need just for what power control?" I looked at Michael. "Are you going to let her speak to me like that in your house?" Michael lowered his gaze. "Mom, Linda has some valid points." "Valid points." I stood up. "I came here because you said we had to talk, not to be insulted." "You are not being insulted," Linda intervened. "You are being confronted with the truth, and the truth is that you are being a burden to your son." Those words hit me like a slap. A burden, yes. Emotionally, financially. Michael has to be worrying about you, about your empty house, about your loneliness, when he should be focusing on his own family. I have never asked him to worry about me. You do not have to ask. You are his mother. It is automatic. And he feels guilty living his life while you wither away in that huge house. Linda. "That is enough," Sarah said in a low voice. But Linda did not stop. "What you need, Emily, is to accept your stage. You are an older woman, a widow alone. The healthiest thing would be for you to sell that house, move to a smaller apartment more manageable, and give Michael what belongs to him. That way, he could have peace. And you too. And who gave you authority to tell me how to live my life?" Linda smiled. That horrible smile. "I do not have authority, but common sense does. And any reasonable person would see that you are being irrational." I turned toward Michael. "Do you think that I am irrational? That I am a burden?" Michael ran his hand through his hair. "Mom, I do not. Look, I just think it would be easier for everyone if you were more flexible." Flexible. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Is flexible giving away my estate? Is flexible doing what you guys want regardless of what I feel? "It is thinking about your grandson's future," Linda said. "Do not use Matthew as a shield for your manipulation." Linda got up from the armchair. She planted herself in front of me. Taller, younger, stronger. "I am not manipulating anyone. I am being the voice of reason in this dysfunctional family, because clearly you raised a son who is afraid to say no to his own mother." "Linda, sit down," Sarah ordered. But Linda remained standing, looking at me with contempt. "Do you know what your problem is, Emily? That you never got over your husband's death, and you are clinging to material things because you have nothing else. No friends, no social life, no purpose. Only that empty house and those memories that no one else wants. That is enough." Sarah's voice cut the air like a knife. But the damage was already done. Every word from Linda had been calculated to hurt, and it had worked. I felt tears burning my eyes, but I did not let them out. I was not going to give her that pleasure. "Michael," I said, turning toward my son, "did you bring this woman here to insult me?" Michael looked uncomfortable. "Mom, I just wanted us to talk." "Well, we already talked, and I heard everything you had to say. Now it is my turn." Everyone fell silent. I took Arthur's ring off my finger. I held it high so everyone could see it. "This ring belonged to your father, the man who worked all his life to build something. Not just for him, not just for me. For you too, Michael. But he was wise enough to know that an estate in the wrong hands becomes a curse, not a blessing. Mom, please, your father left everything in my name for a reason. Because he knew me. Because he knew I was going to protect what we built. And he also knew you. He knew you were good but impressionable. He knew you could make impulsive decisions. He knew you needed protection, even from yourself. Isn't that true?" "No." I took out my cell phone. I looked for the photos Veronica had sent me. I showed them to him. Michael paled. "Who is Ashley?" "Michael." Sarah let out a sob. Linda stayed quiet for the first time all night. "Who is the woman you have been seeing in Austin for almost a year? The woman with whom you plan to open a business using my house as collateral?" "How did you know?" "It does not matter how I knew. What matters is that now I know exactly what kind of man you are, and I know exactly what you wanted my house for." Michael opened his mouth, closed it. He had no defense. "But that is not all." I continued. "I saw Linda. I also know that you and this lady have been planning for months how to manipulate me, how to pressure me, how to use Sarah and Matthew as emotional tools, so I would yield." Linda lifted her chin. "I was only protecting my daughter and my grandson." "Lie. You were protecting your investment. Because if Michael got my estate, you would also benefit. Or isn't it true that you promised him that if he got the house, you would help him with Ashley's business?" Linda did not answer. She did not deny it, because it was true. I turned toward Sarah. She was crying in silence, rocking with Matthew in her arms. "Sarah, I am sorry. I am sorry my son did this to you. I am sorry your mother used you. And I am sorry this innocent child is in the middle of all this. Mother-in-law," she whispered, "but I cannot save you. That is not my battle." I looked at Michael again. "I went to see Mr. Harrison. I activated all the protections of your father's will. The house, the hardware stores, the accounts, everything is locked under irreversible trusts. I cannot change it even if I wanted to. You will inherit only after my death, not a day before, not a dollar before." Michael took a step toward me. "Mom, you cannot do that. I already did. That is revenge. That is justice," I finished. "Yes, maybe it is. Or maybe it is simply what your father wanted from the beginning. You are punishing me for falling in love with another person. I am protecting you from yourself, just like your father protected me." Linda approached. Her face was red with fury. "You are a bitter, selfish, cruel old woman." Maybe I replied calmly, but I'm a bitter old woman with my house, with my estate, with my dignity intact. "Michael, you are not going to allow your mother to speak to me like that," Linda hissed. And then it happened. Michael looked at me. He looked at me with a coldness I had never seen in his eyes. "Mom," he said with a hard voice, "you have to apologize to Linda." Time stopped. "What you disrespected her. You insulted her. She is my son's grandmother. Apologize to her. Now." I could not believe what I was hearing. "Michael, she insulted me first. She called me selfish, a burden, a bitter old woman. And maybe she was right. Look at what you are doing, destroying your own family for money. It is not for money, it is for—" "Apologize to my mother-in-law!" Michael shouted. His voice boomed through the whole house. Matthew woke up and started crying. "Or get out of my house." There it was. The ultimatum. The line I never thought my son would cross. I looked at Michael, at the man who had grown in my womb, at the boy I had rocked in my arms, at the son for whom I would have given my life without thinking. And I saw a stranger. I saw a man asking me to humiliate myself in front of the woman who had conspired against me. A man who chose his manipulative mother-in-law over his own mother. A man who put conditions on my presence in his life. Sarah was crying. Michael, no. But Michael did not listen to her. He stared at me, hoping I would yield, hoping I would kneel, hoping I would choose his love over my dignity as I had always done. But this time was different. I stood up. I took my purse. I walked toward Linda. She looked at me with that victorious smile, with that shine in her eyes that said, "I beat you." I stopped in front of her, and I said only 3 words. "You keep him." Her smile froze. "What?" "You keep my son. With his lies, with his betrayal, with this disaster you helped create. He is all yours now." I turned toward Michael. "Son, your father left you a clean name, an honest estate, solid values, and a mother who loved you more than her own life. And you traded all that for this," I pointed around. "For this woman who manipulates you. For a mistress in Austin. For money you have not earned. I can no longer save you. I am no longer going to try. Mom, if you walk out that door, what I will not have a son. Son, I have not had a son for months. I only have a man who looks like him, but whom I do not know." I walked toward the door. "Emily, do not be dramatic." I heard Linda's voice. "Sit down. Let's talk like adults." I did not turn around. I opened the door. The cold night air hit my face. "Mom," Michael shouted. But I did not stop. I went down the stairs. I walked toward my car. My hands were trembling so much it was hard to put the key in the lock. Finally, I managed. I sat in the driver's seat, and there alone in my car with my son's house illuminated behind me, I let the tears fall. They were not tears of regret. They were tears of grief. Because that night I did not only lose my son, I lost the illusion of what he was. I lost the fantasy of the perfect family. I lost the boy he had been and who would never return. But I also gained something. I gained my dignity. I gained the respect of the woman in the mirror. I gained the peace of knowing I did the right thing even if it hurt. I drove home in silence. The streets were empty. The city slept. When I arrived, I entered and locked the door. I went to my room. I took off the pearl gray dress. I put on my nightgown. I sat on the bed with Arthur's ring in my hand. I did it. I whispered to him. I left. I lost my son, but I found myself. And then, exhausted, empty but strangely at peace, I lay down. I do not know at what moment I fell asleep, but I dreamed of Arthur. We were in our small apartment in the city. He was making coffee. I was grading homework. Life was simple. Life was good. And in the dream, he turned to see me and smiled. "You did well, Emily. I am proud of you." I woke up with wet cheeks, but this time it was not only sadness, it was liberation. I still ask myself if I did the right thing that night. And you, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed and apologized, or would you have walked out that door? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes we need to know we are not alone in the most difficult decisions. The first days after that night were the hardest. I woke up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing, reviewing every word, every gesture, wondering if I should have stayed, if I should have yielded, if I should have chosen my son's love over my dignity. But every time I reached that point, I remembered his voice. Apologize to my mother-in-law or get out of my house. And then I knew I had done the right thing, because a love that demands humiliation is not love. It is control. The first week was an exercise in resistance. I did not call Michael. He did not call me either. The silence between us was deafening, but it was also necessary. I cleaned the house from top to bottom. I donated clothes I did not use. I gave away furniture that only occupied space. It was as if I were making space not only in my house, but in my life, in my heart. One afternoon, while organizing Arthur's closet, which I had left intact for 4 years, I found a box on the top shelf. I took it down carefully. It was full of letters. Letters Arthur had written to me while we were dating, letters I had kept and forgotten. I sat on the floor and read them all one by one. In one of them, written 2 months before our wedding, Arthur said, "Emily, I promise you I will always protect you even when I am no longer here. I am going to build something so solid for you that you never have to depend on anyone, not even on our children, because motherly love is the strongest in the world, but also the most vulnerable, and I am not going to let anyone abuse that love." I cried reading those words because Arthur had kept his promise. He had built something solid. He had left protections. He had foreseen exactly this, that I would need to defend myself even from my own son. And the most beautiful thing was that he had done it without judging Michael. He simply knew human nature. He knew money changes people. He knew external influences can twist even the best children, and he had given me the tools to survive that. I put the letters back in the box, but I took out that particular letter, put it in a frame, and hung it in my study as a reminder, as an anchor. In the second week, I received an unexpected call. It was Sarah. "Mother-in-law, can we talk?" "Tell me, Sarah." "Not over the phone. Can I come to your house?" I hesitated, but something in her voice made me agree. "Come tomorrow at 11. She arrived on time. She brought Matthew in his stroller. The boy was sleeping peacefully. Sarah looked gaunt without makeup, deep dark circles, dull hair. I made her tea. We sat in the living room. "How are you?" I asked her. "Bad," she replied with an honesty that surprised me. "Everything is falling apart." "What happened?" "After you left that night, Michael and I had a terrible fight. I demanded the truth about Ashley. He denied everything at first, but I showed him the messages, the photos. He could no longer lie." Her voice broke. "He confessed he has been with her for over a year, that he is in love, that he wanted to ask for a divorce but did not know how to tell me, that he was waiting to get your house to have resources and be able to start his new life. Every word was a confirmation of what I already knew. I am sorry, Sarah. Me too. But what hurts me most is not just the infidelity. It is realizing my mom knew. My own mother knew Michael was cheating on me and told me nothing, because it suited her that I remained married to him, because as long as I was Michael's wife, she could keep manipulating him. Your mom knew," Sarah nodded, wiping her tears. I asked her for explanations, and do you know what she told me? That all men fail. That the important thing was to keep the family united and get your house before everything got complicated. That later, with money, we could fix the marriage. My God, mother-in-law, forgive me. Forgive me for everything. For how we treated you, for keeping you away from Matthew, for being part of this horrible plan. I did not know everything, but I should have seen the signs. I should have defended you. I took her hand on the table. "Sarah, I have nothing to forgive you. You were also a victim in all this. What am I going to do? I have no job. I have no savings. I depend completely on Michael. My mom tells me to stay quiet, to pretend I know nothing, to wait. But I cannot. I cannot live in a lie. I looked at her. This woman who had been my antagonist, who had made me feel invisible, and now she was in front of me, broken, asking for help. I could have taken revenge. I could have told her, now you know how it feels. But I did not, because revenge was never my goal. Sarah, you have to make a decision. What do you want for you and for Matthew? I want to get out of there. I want a divorce. I want to start over. Then do it. But I have no money, not even to pay a lawyer. There was a silence. And then I did something not even I expected to do. I am going to help you. Sarah looked up, surprised. What I'm going to pay for a lawyer, a good lawyer. Someone to help you get fair child support for Matthew, to help you get out of that house with dignity. Mother-in-law, I cannot accept. Yes, you can, because I am not doing it for you. I am doing it for Matthew. My grandson deserves to have a strong mother, a mother who does not stay in a dead marriage out of fear, and you can be that mother, but you need help to start. Sarah cried, a deep cry of relief and gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. After she left, I stayed thinking about my decision. I did not do it for Michael. I did not do it to punish him. I did it because it was the right thing, because Matthew was innocent, and he deserved to grow up with a mother who could look at herself in the mirror without shame. That small gesture gave me something I did not expect. Peace. Peace knowing that even in the middle of chaos, I could choose to be good. I could choose to help instead of avenge. The following days were strangely quiet. I resumed activities I had abandoned. I joined a book club at the neighborhood library. I started going to yoga classes in the mornings. I met other women my age, women who had also been widowed, who had also raised children who now lived far away. One of them, Margaret, became my friend. We drank coffee after yoga and talked about everything, about our dead husbands, about our complicated children, about our postponed dreams. Do you know what my son told me the other day? Margaret told me one afternoon that my house was too big for me alone, that I should sell it and give him the money so he could invest it, that he would know how to manage it better. I laughed, a bitter laugh. My son told me the same thing. And what did you do? I told him no. And what happened? He stopped talking to me. Margaret nodded with understanding. Mine too. We have not spoken for 3 months. Does it hurt? At first, yes. A lot. But now I understand that sometimes loving a son means letting him live the consequences of his decisions, even if those consequences include losing me. Her words resonated in my chest. It was exactly what I was living. That night alone in my house, I prepared dinner as if Arthur were still there. I set 2 plates, one for me, one empty in front of me. On the empty plate, I put the ring. Arthur, I think I finally understand your will. You did not protect me from the world. You protected me from my own need to be loved at any cost. You forced me to choose myself, to defend myself even when it hurt. I ate in silence. But it was not a sad silence. It was a full silence. A silence that spoke of difficult decisions made with head held high. After dinner, I went to my study. I opened the drawer where I kept all the legal documents, Arthur's will, the deeds, the activated trusts. Everything was in order. Everything was protected. And then I understood something I had not understood until that moment. I did not need to do anything else. I did not need to take revenge. I did not need to punish Michael. I did not need to prove anything. I had simply activated his father's will. The rest would follow its natural course. Because life has a way of collecting its debts. It is not vengeful karma. It is not divine punishment. It is simply the natural consequence of the decisions we take. Michael had chosen lies over truth manipulation, over love money, over family. And those choices would have their price. I did not have to do anything. I just had to wait. And live my life with a clear conscience. Days passed. A week, 2 weeks, I continued with my routine. Yoga, reading, coffee with Margaret, visits to the market, quiet afternoons in my garden, taking care of the rose bushes Arthur had planted. I was surprised to realize I did not feel alone. I felt free, free from the constant anxiety of pleasing my son, free from the need to justify my existence, free from walking on tiptoes in my own life. One afternoon while pruning the roses, my neighbor Mrs. Fields leaned over the fence. "Emily, you look different. Different how I do not know. Lighter, as if you had taken a weight off your shoulders." I smiled. "Maybe so. Whatever you did, it sits well with you." That night I put on the pearl gray dress again, the same one I had worn at that terrible dinner, but this time I put it on for me. I looked at myself in the mirror. 60 years old, gray hair that no longer bothered me, wrinkles around the eyes that told stories. And for the first time in years, I liked the woman I saw in the mirror. I was not perfect. I was not young. I was not the selfless mother who forgives everything. But I was worthy. I was strong. It was me. I put Arthur's ring on my finger. "Thank you for teaching me this," I told his reflection in the mirror, as if he were there. "Thank you for loving me enough to protect me even from myself." And then it happened. It was a Thursday night, exactly 2 weeks after the dinner. I was reading in the living room when I heard loud knocks on the door. Desperate. Urgent. I got up confused. I looked through the peephole. It was Michael. His face was undone. Red eyes, messy hair. He was banging on the door as if his life depended on it. "Oh, Mom, open up. Please." My heart accelerated. I opened the door. Michael practically collapsed on the threshold. "Mom," he sobbed. "Mom, everything is wrong. Everything is falling apart. The bank blocked my accounts. The lawyer called me. The house has a foreclosure order. I do not understand what is happening. What did you do? What did you do?" I looked at him. My son, desperate, scared, lost. And although my mother's heart wanted to hug him, console him, save him, my head knew this was the moment of truth, the moment of justice. Not the one I had sought, but the one life itself had brought. I took a deep breath, and with a calmness I did not know I had, I told him, "Come in, Michael. We have to talk." Michael entered my house like a castaway looking for dry land. He let himself fall on the living room sofa with his hands trembling, his breathing ragged. He seemed to have aged 10 years in 2 weeks. I closed the door calmly. I went to the kitchen. I made chamomile tea, the same one I gave him when he was a boy and had nightmares. When I returned, he had his head in his hands. Here I told him, offering him the cup. "Breathe." He took the tea with trembling hands. He drank a long sip. "Mom, I do not understand what is happening. This morning I tried to use my credit card and it was declined. I called the bank and they told me all my accounts are frozen by court order. Then a lawyer called me saying the house has a foreclosure order for unpaid debts, but I do not have debts. I have been paying everything on time." I looked at him in silence, waiting. And then his voice broke. "Then Sarah handed me divorce papers, official papers with a real lawyer. I do not know where she got the money to hire a lawyer like that. And she is suing me for child support for Matthew's custody for everything." He drank more tea. His hands kept trembling. "And Ashley left me. She told me she does not want to be with someone who has so many problems, that she did not sign up for this, that it was nice while it lasted, but she needs stability." He left the cup on the coffee table with a dry thud. "And my boss called me today. He asked me about the trips to Austin. Someone sent him information that I was using business trips to see Ashley, that I was billing personal expenses as company expenses. They put me under internal investigation. I could lose my job, Mom." Every word was a piece of the puzzle falling into place, not by my hand but by his. "And Linda," he continued with bitterness, "Linda does not even answer my calls. She disappeared as if she had never been my ally, as if all those months of plans and strategies had not existed." He got up from the sofa, walked toward the window, turned his back to me. "Then I came here. I went to the bank first. I spoke with the manager. He told me the block came from an order related to Dad's estate, that trusts were activated, that someone had initiated legal proceedings." He turned toward me. His eyes were red. "You did this. Mr. Harrison confirmed to me that it was you that you activated clauses in Dad's will that blocked everything. Why, Mom? Why are you doing this to me?" I took a sip of my own tea. I let the silence stretch between us. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, almost soft. "I am not doing anything to you, Michael. I just activated your father's will just as he left it written, just as it always should have been." "And what does that mean?" "What does Dad's will have to do with the bank blocking my accounts?" I stood up. I went to my study. I took out a folder I had prepared. I returned and put it on the coffee table. "Open it." Michael opened the folder with clumsy hands. Inside were copies of all the documents: the original will, the trusts, the court orders. "Your father," I began. "He left it very clear in his will that the entire estate would remain in my name while I lived. The hardware stores, the properties, the investment accounts, everything. I already know that. But what maybe you did not know is that your father also included protection clauses. Clauses that could be activated if someone tried to pressure me, manipulate me, or force me to transfer properties before my death." Michael paled. "One of those clauses established that if I felt I was being coerced, I could activate an armored trust. A trust that not only protected my estate, but also investigated the financial situation of my heir. What your father was not stupid, Michael. He knew money changes people, that external influences can corrupt even the best children, so he left tools to protect me, and to protect you too, from yourself." Michael was leafing through the documents, reading fast, trying to understand. "When I activated the trust, I continued an audit was automatically initiated. An audit of how you had been handling the money I had given you in the last 2 years. An audit, yes. And that audit revealed interesting things. The $70,000 for the wedding, the $100,000 for the house down payment, the $15,000 for the baby furniture, the $20,000 for the remodel, the $30,000 for Sarah's car. All that was for my family, for our needs. Really, I took out another document. This is a report from the private investigator hired by the trust. It turns out that of the $20,000 that were supposedly to remodel the kitchen, only $5,000 were used for that. You transferred the other $15,000 to Ashley Peace for the deposit on an apartment in Austin." Michael said nothing. His silence was sufficient confession. The $30,000 for Sarah's car never reached a car. $20,000 went to an investment account in your name and Ashley's. You gave the other $10,000 to Linda so she could invest in her decorating business with the promise that she would give you a return when you got the house. "Mom, I, and the house," I continued with a firm voice. "The house you bought in the Highlands with my $100,000 down payment. Did you know Michael put it only in his name? Not in both names with Sarah, only his, because it was always his plan to be able to sell it or use it as collateral without Sarah being able to stop him." Michael let himself fall on the sofa again. "The bank blocked your accounts," I explained, "because the trust detected irregularities, suspicious transfers, joint accounts with a third person who was not your wife. Investments made with money coming from me, but that I never authorized for those purposes. But that money was already mine. You gave it to me. I gave it to you for specific purposes for your family, for your son, not to finance a double life, not to invest with your mistress, not to conspire with your mother-in-law." I sat in the armchair in front of him. I looked him directly in the eyes. "And the foreclosure order on the house is because Sarah, with the lawyer I paid for, proved before a judge that you put the house only in your name using money that was meant for the family, that you hid assets, that you planned to sell the house without her consent. The judge issued an asset protection order. Until the divorce is resolved, that house cannot be sold, mortgaged, or touched." Michael put his hands to his face. You paid for Sarah's lawyer." "Yes. Why, to destroy me? No, to protect my grandson, to make sure Matthew has a strong mother who can take care of him, because you, my son, demonstrated you have no intention of doing so. I love my son. Do not say that." My voice hardened. "Do not insult the concept of love. You do not love Matthew. If you loved him, you would not have cheated on his mother. You would not have planned to destroy his family. You would not have used the money destined for his future to finance your affair." Michael started to cry, deep sobs of a broken man. "And Ashley left you," I continued without mercy now, because people like her are only there when things go well, when there is money, when there are promises, when there is a future. But when problems arrive, when reality hits, they leave because it was never love, it was convenience. I loved her. You loved the fantasy, you loved the idea of starting over, of being young again, of escaping your responsibilities. But real love, son, real love, stays in difficult moments, stays when the other person gets old, stays when there are bills to pay and diapers to change and sleepless nights. You had that real love with Sarah, and you threw it in the trash. Sarah and I did not love each other anymore, maybe. But then you should have been honest. You should have asked for a divorce before cheating on her, before lying, before using your mother's money to build your escape. Michael cried harder now. And Linda, I continued. Linda disappeared because for her too, it was only a means to an end. While she believed you could get my house, that you could be her partner in her businesses, she was your best ally. But now that everything collapsed, now that you are no longer useful, she left because people like Linda only love the benefit, not the person. I got up, walked toward the window, looked toward my garden where Arthur's roses kept blooming. And your job? I said without turning around. Your job is investigating you because someone sent them information. Do you know who it was? Silence. I did not do it, but I suspect it was Veronica, your colleague, the woman who also went through an infidelity, and who saw you lie day after day. She has her own conscience and decided your company deserved to know the truth. I turned toward him. You see, Michael, I did not destroy your life. You destroyed it. Decision after decision, lie after lie, betrayal after betrayal. I only activated your father's will. The rest was life collecting what you owed. Michael wiped his face with his hands. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. And now what? What am I supposed to do that I cannot decide for you? But I can tell you what I will not do. I am not going to save you. I am not going to unblock the accounts. I am not going to talk to the bank. I am not going to pay the lawyer to defend you. I am not going to rescue you. Mom, please, I am going to lose everything. My house, my job, my family. You already lost your family. You lost it the day you chose the lie. And the house was never really yours. It was an illusion bought with my money and your job. Well, that depends on if the accusations are true. And I think we both know they are. He got up desperate. Then what do you want that I crawl, that I ask for forgiveness on my knees? I do not want anything from you, Michael. I do not need your forgiveness. I do not need your regret. I do not need to see you suffer. Then I just need you to understand one thing. Your father loved you enough to leave you an inheritance, but he also loved you enough to protect it until you were worthy of receiving it. And right now, son, you are not worthy. Those words hit him like a slap. Someday, I continued, maybe in many years, when I am no longer here, you will receive everything your father and I built. The hardware stores, the house, the investments, everything. But it will not be because you demanded it. It will not be because you manipulated me. It will be because that was your father's will, and I respect it. Meanwhile, I added, you have to learn to live with the consequences of your decisions. You have to face what you did. To Sarah, to Matthew, to yourself. I am not going to be able to, he sobbed. I am not going to survive this. Yes, you are going to be able to because you are your father's son. And he was a man who knew how to get up after falling, who knew how to rebuild after losing, who knew how to be humble when life put him on his knees. I approached him. I put my hand on his shoulder. But that strength only appears when you stop blaming others, when you stop waiting for someone to rescue you, when finally you look in the mirror and make yourself responsible. Michael looked up at me. His eyes were shattered. I hate you, he whispered. It did not hurt because I knew it was not true. Or maybe it was, but it did not matter. It is okay, I replied calmly. You can hate me, but eventually, if you really grow, if you really change, you will understand that what I did was out of love. Not the soft love that forgives everything and allows everything, but the strong love that says, I love you too much to be an accomplice in your self-destruction. Michael walked toward the door. He stopped at the threshold. You once called me crazy, he said without turning. Years ago when I called you to tell you about Sarah's pregnancy, and you told me it was too soon, that we should wait. I got mad at you. I told you that you were crazy, that you did not understand." He turned. He looked at me. "Years later, I understood you were right, that we were not ready, but it was too late. And now I know you are right again. And I do not know if someday I'm going to be able to look you in the eyes without feeling shame." He left. The door closed. I stayed alone in my living room in that huge house he wanted so much. And I did not cry. I did not feel triumph. I did not feel satisfied revenge. I felt something deeper. I felt the sadness of a mother who had to choose between saving her son from the consequences or saving her son from himself. And I chose the second, because that is what true love does. It does not rescue. It allows the person to fall enough so they decide by themselves to get up. That night I sat on my bed with Arthur's ring. "You saw it, love," I told the ring. "You saw our son broken, suffering, paying for his mistakes." A tear rolled down my cheek. I hope someday he understands. I hope someday when the pain turns into wisdom he can forgive me. But if he never does, if he never returns, at least I will know I did the right thing, that I was not an accomplice, that I respected your will, that I respected myself. I went to bed with the ring clenched in my hand, and I dreamed of Arthur again. This time, we were in the park. Michael was a little boy running among the trees. Arthur and I watched him from a bench. "He is going to be fine," Arthur told me in the dream. "He is going to fall many times, but he is going to learn, and when he learns, he is going to be the man we raised him to be. Not perfect, but good, honest, strong. And if he does not learn?" I asked in the dream. Arthur took my hand. "Then at least you tried. And that is all a mother can do, try love and let go." I woke up with the sun entering through the window. It was Friday, a new day, and for the first time in months I felt completely at peace. Because I had done what I had to do, not out of revenge, but out of love. The most difficult love of all. The love that says no, the love that allows consequences to teach what words cannot. The love that trusts that eventually life does its job, and life always collects its debts. Always. 8 months have passed since that night. 8 months since Michael left my house broken, finally facing the consequences of his decisions. It has not been easy for either of us. The first months were of total silence. I did not look for him. He did not look for me either. It was Margaret, my friend from the book club, who told me something that helped me survive those days. Silence between a mother and a son is not abandonment. Sometimes it is respect for each one's process. And she was right. Michael needed his process. I also needed mine. I knew through Sarah that Michael lost his job, that he had to move to a small apartment, that he is paying child support punctually, not because he wants to, but because the law obliges him. I also knew he sees Matthew on weekends, that at first he did not even know how to change a diaper, that he cried out of frustration when the boy would not stop crying. But little by little he is learning to be a father without the safety net of a big house, without easy money, without someone else doing the work for him. Sarah, on her part, flourished. She got a job at a marketing agency. She cut her hair. She smiles more. She visits me with Matthew every 2 weeks. We are not mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. We are 2 women who survived the same storm and came out stronger. "Thank you," she told me a month ago while we drank coffee in my garden. "Thank you for teaching me that self-love is not selfishness, it is survival." And me, my life also changed. I no longer live waiting for the phone. I no longer measure my worth by how much my son needs me. I resumed the hardware stores. I got involved in the administration. I discovered I have a good eye for business, something I never knew because I was always in the background. The 3 branches are flourishing, and when the time comes when I am no longer here, Michael will inherit them, but it will be a different man who receives them, or at least I hope so. 3 weeks ago, I received a letter. It was from Michael, a handwritten letter in his messy handwriting I would recognize anywhere. It did not say much, only this: "Mom, I still do not understand everything. It still hurts. I am still angry. But for the first time in my life, I look in the mirror and see someone I do not like. And I understand that that someone I created, not you, not the circumstances me. I do not know if someday I will be able to forgive you for not rescuing me, but I think I am starting to understand why you did it. Dad would be proud of you. I am not yet, but maybe someday. Michael. I cried when I read that letter, not because I expected his forgiveness, but because I saw for the first time in years a glimpse of the son I raised. Not perfect, not redeemed yet, but honest, and honesty is the first step toward healing. This morning, while watering Arthur's roses, I thought about everything that happened, and I realized something. The pain I felt losing my son temporarily was much less than the pain I would have felt losing myself forever, because that is what would have happened if I had signed those papers, if I had yielded to manipulation, if I had chosen to be loved over being respected. I would have betrayed myself. And no love, not even a son's, is worth that betrayal. Today I turn 61. This afternoon, Margaret and the women from the book club will come to celebrate with me. There will be cake, there will be laughter, there will be stories, and I, for the first time in years, will celebrate my life. Not the life I lost, not the life I could have had, but the life I have. Here, now, real, imperfect, but mine. Before my friends arrive, I went to my room. I took Arthur's ring for the last time out of its blue velvet box. I put it in my palm. I looked at it under the afternoon light. I fulfilled your will, love, I told him. It was not easy, but I did it. I protected what we built. I protected myself. And I gave our son the only opportunity he had to become a real man, the opportunity to fall, to fail, to learn. A tear fell on the ring. Thank you for loving me so much, for knowing me so much, for protecting me even after your death. I closed my fist around the ring, and then I did something I had never done. I went to the garden, to the rose bushes Arthur planted. I dug a small hole next to the most beautiful bush, the one that blooms with deep red roses. And there in the warm earth I buried the ring, not because I did not love him, but because I finally understood I did not need to carry him anymore. Arthur was not in that ring. Arthur was in the hardware stores we built, in the house we chose, in the son we raised, in the difficult decisions I made using the strength he gave me. He was in me, and he would always be. I covered the ring with earth. I watered the rose bush. Rest, my love. Your work is done. You taught me to be strong. Now it is my turn to live that lesson. I got up. I shook the dirt off my hands, and I returned to my house with a light heart. If my story reached you here, if these words resonated somewhere in your soul, I want you to know something. You are not alone. Many women have had to choose between being loved or being respected, between pleasing or protecting ourselves, between saving others or saving ourselves. And it is the most difficult decision in the world. But I promise you that on the other side of that decision there is peace. Maybe there isn't the happy ending you imagined. Maybe there are losses. Maybe there is grief. But there is also dignity, and dignity at the end of the day is the only thing no one can take away from you, unless you allow it. I no longer allow it, and I hope you don't either. Thanks for listening until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and activate the bell to listen to more stories of women who transform their pain into wisdom. Every day a woman, a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day. God bless you, and until next time.